Hi there, and welcome to this presentation on the causes and start of World War I. This is the first of three parts. These are notes 12.1a, and this is, of course, Mr. Marks. Please take a moment to write down the key points that will be required for this section of notes. Make sure that you have something for all of these. The very first thing that we're going to talk about with this are the causes of World War I. And there are basically three main elements that brought about World War I, and then one trigger point that starts the whole thing. The first main underlining cause of World War I is going to be imperialism. If you remember, imperialism is when a powerful nation tries to dominate other nations. It tries to make for itself a kind of empire. And all of the European nations were out to do this. They all wanted to have colonies so that they could have that trade imbalance, that trade surplus in their favor. If they could dominate the market of a large enough area of the world, they would be able to prove to the other European countries that they were more powerful than anyone else. Now, this was not just limited to European countries. Japan is going to take a part in this kind of imperialism, and so is the United States. While the United States had tried to stay out of larger international affairs, during the Spanish-American War, when the United States gets itself involved in the Civil War in Cuba, they end up eventually getting they get the territories of the Philippines, which makes it so they start looking at the territories near Asia, since that's where the Philippines are, and spreading into China, those sorts of things. And that's what this cartoon is dealing with. In a sense, it's almost like a game of chess. It's this strategic placement of your businesses and your troops in order to give your country the largest land area in the world. This is directly connected to the second major cause for World War II, and that is the rise in militarism. Militarism is a glorification of the military. It's when a country starts putting its resources to creating a larger army, larger navy, and more advanced weapons. This is part of that social Darwinism idea of survival of the fittest. The basic premise of that is if your nation is stronger than the other nations, then due to that social idea, due to the social Darwinism, it must deserve to rule over them. And so many countries would try to put this focus on their military. They want to make their young men more willing to join the military. So they glorified war. They made it so men would have these dreams about blaring trumpets and dashing cavalry charges. But the truth is, when World War I is actually going to start, the war is going to turn out to be very different than anyone had thought it was going to be, and many of these young men are going to die due to this delusion that's set up with them. I want to point out that also during this time, you can see from this picture that this was a time when we were still transitioning over to the use of the automobile. Horse-drawn carriages were very much a part of warfare still at this time. They were necessary for moving artillery over difficult terrain where cars were not quite as reliable, or automobiles, different vehicles of that sort. The tank had not even been really invented yet. The third main element behind the rise of World War I is going to be the tangled web of alliances which is created throughout Europe. As every European nation is trying to create its own empire, and as they're trying to make it so their military is greater than anyone else, they will ally themselves with other countries of similar interests to make certain that no one else is going to attack them while they're trying to amass power. Germany will sign a treaty with the Ottoman Empire. That will make Britain actually sign sign a treaty with Japan. This growth of rival alliance systems is going to increase international tensions. A local conflict, something in a very small region, is going to have a chance because of this to mushroom into this general warfare. As you can see here, and I love this graphic that I found online, as you can see here, the two major groups that are going to divide up are going to be the Triple Entente, um, which will be of Russia, Britain, and France, and then the Triple Alliance. And you notice right in the center of that is that powder keg we were talking about for the last unit, the Balkans. This is that region that's just south of Austria-Hungary, just north of Greece, that has a large number of Slavic peoples who have many different nationalities. They've broken into many different languages, even though they all have that one Slavic root. They're going to be interested, many of the Slavic people in the Balkans are going to be interested in something called Pan-Slavicism. The idea of Pan-Slavism is that eventually all these Slavic speaking peoples, all these people with different Slavic languages, are going to combine together into one great empire and form their own sort of imperialism. The largest Slavic speaking country in the world happens to be Russia. And so Russia is going to take a great deal of interest in this idea of Pan-Slavism. If you remember, Austria-Hungary had just taken the control of Bulgaria, this region to the south that had a lot of these Slavic people in there. This is going to anger Serbia, who had been looking to form an alliance with Bulgaria before, and they're going to be upset to see Austria-Hungary just subsume, just take in all of these Slavic-speaking people. This will give rise to militant groups like the Black Hand. The Black Hand, which was officially known as Unity or Death, I mean, it's got pretty ominous names one way or the other, that was a secret military society that was founded in the Kingdom of Serbia in 1911 in an effort to go against Austria-Hungary. It was part of this Pan-Slavist movement, and its intention was to disrupt as many things as possible in the Austrian-Hungary government in order to make it so they'd want to give up on the Slavs as being too difficult of a people to rule. This group is going to be directly connected to the death of this man, Francis Ferdinand. Now, Francis Ferdinand was the grandnephew of Francis Joseph, if you remember, the man who was in charge of Austria-Hungary. And Francis Ferdinand was being groomed to be the next leader. Now, he decides to go down to Sarajevo, this capital in the Austria-Hungarian province of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Don't need to write that down. That he's going to go down there in order to try to show how interested Austria-Hungary is in the affairs of that country. This plan backfires, as most Serbians will see this royal visit as just a way of showing how much the Slavic people are under the thumb of the Austria-Hungarians. Even worse, the chosen date for this Archduke's visit, all right, Archduke Francis Ferdinand, and I forgot to mention he's the guy on the left. I hope you figured that out. The date for his visit, which is June 28th, was a special date in Serbian history. It was on that date, way back in 1389, that Serbia had been conquered by the Ottoman Empire. If you remember, Austria-Hungary had just been trying to take pieces of the Ottoman Empire. On the same date, on 1912, Serbia had just freed itself from from the Ottoman Empire, from Turkish rule. So here it is, 2 years later, and he happens to show up on the date of both oppression and freedom for the Serbian people. Not a good choice. A group of men decide that they are going to ambush Francis Ferdinand on his drive to the ministry building. Now, they have his route, they know what route he's going to take, and the plan is to stop the vehicle where it's at and just basically shoot into the car. This was a group of young men, among which is the man on the right, Gavrilo Princip. He's only 19 years old, and he's a member of Young Bosnia, which is part of the Black Hand movement. Okay? He arrives a little bit late to the assassination. People are set up in different places. The attempted assassination. Francis Ferdinand's it is put in a position where a car ends up kind of blocking him off. He's got this whole convoy. People start firing at his vehicle, throwing bombs at it. A bomb blows up and injures one of his guards. Now, he takes the guard into his car, and instead of continuing on to the government building, he tells his driver to take them to the hospital so that he'd be able to see that the guard was okay. I need to clarify something. The guard was taken to the hospital by a separate car. Francis Ferdinand simply wanted to go to the hospital in order to visit with this guard who had been injured trying to protect him. That's kind of a nice thing to do, but it's going to end up not being a good thing for him. The assassination plot foiled. All of the different members just fade into the crowd. They disappear. There were like 8 or 9 men involved. It's a little bit fuzzy in history as to what the actual number is. Gavrila Princip, he doesn't know what to do with himself. He's just doesn't want to go straight home. He's a little bit hungry, so he decides to go and get a sandwich. As he's getting his sandwich, Francis Ferdinand's car passes by the shop where he's buying his food. He runs out the door, pulls out his gun, and is outdistanced by the car. The car is able to drive much faster than what he's able to run. Again, could have easily been the end of the story. Unfortunately, Francis Ferdinand's driver got lost and found himself down kind of a dead end. He had to back up, and here Gavril Princip had already missed the attempt the first time, had missed it as the car had passed where he'd gotten the sandwich, was starting to walk back again and saw the car reversing and heading in his direction, and he ran up and started a war, not knowing this. He fired into the car, and at approximately 1:15 p.m., Franz Ferdinand and his wife were killed in Sarajevo. This is Sunday, June 28th, 1914. This will start a chain of events which will trigger World War I. Gavril Princip is not going to have a good time with this whole thing. He is going to end up being betrayed. He'll end up imprisoned, and he will end up dying there of starvation-related diseases. This leads to the actual trigger of the war. The shot had been fired, and now Austria-Hungary, in response, makes an ultimatum of Serbia. An ultimatum is a final set of demands. This is the ultimate demand. You do this, or we will do the harshest possible consequence. You can see in the background of this cartoon, everybody's pointing their fingers at one another, but in the back, you see the piece of Europe has been killed by a sword. In order to end the war, according to this ultimatum, Serbia must end all anti-Austrian agitation and punish any Serbian official involved in the murder plot. It must even let Austria join in the investigation. Serbia agrees to most of it, but does not want Austrian officials who are obviously prejudiced against this to take part in any of the trials. That is enough for Austria to say, you're not fulfilling our ultimatum, and then they declare war on July 28th, 1914, little knowing that they are going to start World War I.